Okay, so what do we mean by Agile? Well, my dictionary definition is the ability to move nimbly with speed and ease. I think in the world of work, we're probably talking as much about mental agility. So the dictionary definition for that is the flexibility of mind, a tendency to anticipate or adapt to uncertain or changing situations. We also talk a lot about agile organizations these days. And Paul Winter's definition of organizational agility is the ability to change routines without resistance. I developed this progression model for agile working last year. It starts with the traditional office. Now, traditional offices have been with us 100 years or so, still quite prevalent. They have a number of advantages in that people are in the same office and the technology is pretty well established and quite secure. So a traditional office worker is someone who comes in the same time every day and goes to work in the same place every day. The first change to that was really the adoption of flexi-time back in the 70s, where people could work at start or finish at different times, probably covering a core period of time. Home working really took off with the Employment Act of 2000, where people with childcare responsibilities, this is now being increased to all employees, could request the right to work flexibly, and home working, working perhaps 1 or 2 days a week, was a very popular option. Obviously, with good broadband speeds, working at home can be quite an effective way of working these days. There's always been a need for people to work out of the office to meet clients, carry out inspections, but the development of mobile telephony has really made this a very feasible option for a lot of people to work out and about. Smart working was introduced with the slogan, work smarter, not harder. In effect, particularly in the public sector, it's been driven by bottom line benefits. By encouraging staff to work out of the office at home or elsewhere, it's been possible to reduce the office space required by sharing desks, and then to either sell or lease the surplus accommodation to give a bottom line benefit. Agile working is really the current state of the art in the ways of working. A big technology input there to enable that, but it is far more transformational than smart working, rather than, which is more about process improvement. So one way of defining agile working is to look at its dimensions. The dimension of time, people can choose when they work in terms of the times of day or the days of the week if they have a compressed working arrangement, or even which weeks in the year if they have perhaps term time working. Second dimension is location. Obviously, people can work in very many places, as well as the office and at home. They can work at clients' premises, in cafes, hotels, and even while traveling. But it's the third dimension of autonomy that really defines agile working. As well as deciding when and where they can work, they can now decide how they work. If they meet the goals that have been set for them to the standards required, then how they do that within limits is down to them, and they are an agile worker. So we have the first of our polling questions now, and I'll hand you back to Merv to look after those.
Okay guys, the first poll is, what is your main way of working? So there we are. It should have come up on your screen. Is it traditional, some home working, mobile working, smart working, or agile working? So we want to hear from you now. So you know, we've got 243 people on the call, so that's a fantastic result. I can see that almost 60% of you have voted, so we'll just keep it going for a little bit longer. We're now up at around the 80% mark, so that's absolutely brilliant. Let me close that poll and then share the results with you. So I think all of you should be able to see the results, possibly with the exception of John. So John, just so you're aware, traditional, including flexi time, is at 42%, some home working at 30%, and then the mobile workers are 10, the smart workers 12, and the agile working 7. So I don't know whether you want to comment on that result.
Yes, I will. Yeah, I find it a little surprising, given that I think most of you are probably project managers or involved in that. I thought there might have been a few more agile workers amongst you. For the E&I work I described a few minutes ago, about 1 in 5 people in that survey were agile workers. So obviously there are a lot of you that are still in traditional working environments. Hopefully before too long you may have some more options open to you to work in a more agile way. Okay, let's move on then. So just to define the difference between agile working and flexible working, and unfortunately people are still using flexible working when they mean agile working, and sometimes in the other way around. Flexible working is very much really a focus on when people work, a concern of when they are working. There are rewards for the time and effort that you put in, and quite often the culture is based on procedures or following procedures. It's generally regarded as an employee-centered benefit, that is, people can request to work flexibly. And around the time of beginning of this century, seems a long time ago, work-life balance was coined and has now become quite well established. And basically that's saying that there are boundaries between the time you spend on work activities and the time you spend on social and personal activities, and we don't cross those boundaries. Agile working should really be seen as a value-creating activity. You get rewards for the quality of the outputs you produce, not the efforts you put in to reach them. The culture is very much based on trust. Agile workers are quite often out of sight and not working at the same time as others, so trust is quite key there. And very importantly, it's seen as an employer-centered benefit. There are business benefits, and I'll cover those in a moment. So therefore, quite a few organizations are adopting agile working because there are those business incentives. However, you still have the employee-centered benefits of flexible working. So for employers and employers, it should be a win-win situation. And then there's another concept called work-life integration. The boundaries between time for work activities and social and personal activities have become quite porous. So to give you an example, the devices that we use these days, one moment we might be checking our business emails, another moment our personal emails, we might be booking business travel, and then a restaurant for a social occasion. We don't wait until the end of the working day before we do our social activities, and we probably don't wait until the beginning of the next working day before we check on some of the business requirements. So depending on the type of work that you do, we are finding that work-life integration is beginning to replace work-life balance.